Tonight, the president seen briefly on camera for the first time in days, heading to his golf club in Virginia. His schedule quiet as federal courts this weekend intervened to limit Mr. Trump's presidential powers on two major fronts, ruling many of his tariffs illegal and an overnight ruling that blocked his administration from fast-tracking deportations of undocumented individuals. A federal judge struck down Trump's executive order, expediting deportations without giving migrants the opportunity for an asylum hearing. The government had previously only used this power to quickly deport individuals detained near the southern border. The judge writing, the policy would inevitably lead the government to erroneously remove people. The Department of Homeland Security saying President Trump has facts and common sense on our side.
What's up, people? Welcome to Dr. John Podcast. Sit down. So let's get started. 47 members of Congress, including key Republicans who spent years running interference for Trump, just signed a formal document demanding his resignation. Not Democrats, his own people.
This pushback to the president's executive authority just hours after federal appeals court judges told Trump that he could not unilaterally implement most of his massive tariffs on imports from countries around the world. The court writing, the power to impose tariffs is vested exclusively in the legislative branch by the Constitution. Neil Katyal is an attorney for the plaintiffs.
If President Trump thinks these tariffs are so important, he has a way to get them through, which is go to Congress and get them approved.
The court will allow the tariffs to remain in place until at least October, leaving the White House a chance to appeal. Trump posting online that the decision should be reversed with, quote, the help of the United States Supreme Court.
And his response wasn't strategic or calculated. Videos leaking from inside the White House show a man in a rage so consuming that witnesses describe it as terrifying, torching his own platform with attacks on the very people he needs to survive. The most dangerous sound in politics right now isn't the opposition's battle cry.
And Vaughn Hilliard joins me now from the White House. Vaughn, also Chicago leaders tonight pushing back against the president's threats to surge federal immigration agents in that city.
Right, Jose. Today, Chicago's mayor signed an order saying local police will not collaborate with federal agents. It comes as two federal law enforcement officials say the Trump administration is preparing to send agents to the city as soon as next week. And the president has suggested trying to send the National Guard as well. Jose?
It's the silence of allies turning their backs. Let's set the scene for this historic implosion. A bipartisan coalition, but one weighted with the heavy significance of Republican signatures, issued a formal letter of demand. This was not a suggestion. This was not a plea for better behavior. This was a political eviction notice. And the document was brutal in its specificity. It laid out a bill of particulars that reads like a closing argument for the prosecution in the trial of an entire administration. First, the letter hammers the issue of judicial defiance. It cites the relentless drumbeat of court orders blocking everything from the sweeping tariff schemes to the aggressive deportation flights. It paints a picture of a president who views the judicial branch not as a co-equal partner, but as a speed bump to be ignored. Second, it drags into the light the $175 billion tariff refund disaster. This is the fiscal anchor that has snapped the chain of the GOP's economic credibility. The Supreme Court didn't just slap Trump on the wrist, they blew a hole in the federal budget that Republicans, who are supposed to be the party of fiscal sanity, cannot possibly defend. Third, it names names, Patel and Bondi. The letter explicitly cites the fact that Trump's hand-picked FBI director and his former attorney general are currently drowning in legal quicksand, facing contempt charges and the very real threat of arrest over their handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. The letter connects those dots directly to the man at the top, arguing that the obstruction of justice in the Epstein case is a disqualifying stain. Fourth, it warns of Iran escalation, pointing to a foreign policy adrift and dangerous. And then, the letter delivers the coup de grace. It makes the political math explicit. It states in cold, clear language that if Democrats seize control of the House in the upcoming midterm elections, impeachment is not a possibility. It is a mathematical certainty. The material is there. The votes will be there. The letter essentially tells Trump, resign now with a shred of dignity, or wait for the humiliation of being dragged from office in chains of evidence. The bombshell is the roster. Key GOP senators and representatives, people who voted to acquit, people who stood on the White House lawn and smiled for the cameras, looked at the smoking wreckage of this second term and said, "I'm done." They are not doing this out of a sudden awakening of moral virtue. They are doing this because they are staring into the abyss of their own political futures. They see the polling in the suburbs. They feel the heat from the business community reeling from trade chaos. They hear the footsteps of a Democratic wave building offshore, and they are making the coldest calculation a politician can make. If I stay tied to this sinking ship, I drown too. The letter is a lifeboat. It's an attempt to put distance between themselves and the debris field of the Trump presidency. And how does the most powerful man in the world respond to this mutiny? With a complete and total psychological unraveling. Sources deep inside the West Wing, the kind of people who only talk in whispers and demand total anonymity, describe a scene of absolute bedlam. Trump is screaming, not the performative yelling of a rally, but the guttural roar of a cornered animal. He is demanding loyalty oaths from staffers who are already updating their LinkedIn profiles. He is reportedly throwing objects, consumed by the need to know which of his chosen people dared to sign that piece of paper. On True Social, the mask is off. The posts are a cascade of fury, branding the Republican signatories as rhinos, traitors, and agents of the deep state. It is the classic Trumpian defense mechanism. When your allies abandon you, you retroactively declare they were never really allies at all. But this time, the playbook is failing, because the people he is attacking are not fringe backbenchers. They are senators and representatives who have weathered every previous scandal, who held the line during 2 impeachments and a felony conviction. These are the institutional pillars of the GOP conference, and they are crumbling. The driving force behind this mass defection is simple biology, political survival. Republicans in competitive districts, the ones who actually have to win a general election and not just a primary, are looking at the calendar and panicking. They see Trump's approval ratings in a free fall that no amount of spin can correct. They see a judiciary that is no longer intimidated by the bully pulpit. They see high-ranking administration officials staring down the barrel of prison time. And they see the $175 billion tariff refund as a lead weight tied to every campaign ad. The internal conversation has shifted from how do we defend the president to how do we survive the president. By signing this resignation demand, they are trying to build a record. They want to be able to stand on a debate stage and say, "I saw the corruption and I called for his removal. I put country over party." It is a cynical maneuver, born of self-preservation, but it is devastatingly effective. And the letter's mention of impeachment is not a bluff. Trump himself validated this fear. He has been caught on tape, in speeches, admitting the cold reality, if we lose the House, they will impeach us. He knows the math. He knows the material, the Epstein obstruction, the Mar-a-Lago document saga, the public defiance of court orders is a roadmap for articles of impeachment. The letter is essentially telling Trump, you know how this movie ends. We're giving you a chance to walk out of the theater before the final humiliating scene. The names on this letter are a gut punch to the Trump psyche. Think of senators like Pat Toomey. This isn't a member of the squad or a liberal firebrand. This is a conservative Republican senator who has been cited in reports as demanding Trump step down specifically over the administration's failure to release the Epstein files. Toomey is saying, in effect, your protection of the Epstein network through Bondi and Patel is the bridge too far. When a senator like that uses the Epstein cover-up as his reason for demanding resignation, it breaks through the partisan noise. It's an argument that lands with the evangelical base and the suburban moms simultaneously. And then there is the shadow play of the 25th Amendment. The whispers around Vice President Vance have grown too loud to ignore. While he maintains a stony public silence, the chatter among his allies and the political class is that Vance is preparing, not necessarily to launch a coup tomorrow, but to have the paperwork ready, the legal counsel on speed dial, and the conversations with cabinet secretaries mapped out. He is watching the screaming rages. He is reading the erratic True Social posts. He is seeing a president who is, in the clinical sense of the 25th Amendment, perhaps unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office due to a deteriorating mental state driven by panic. The resignation letter gives Vance immense political cover. If he ever had to pull that trigger, he wouldn't be acting as a lone wolf. He would be acting in concert with a significant block of the legislative branch who have already declared the president unfit to continue. This is not a repeat of the post-January 6th 6th turmoil. That was a singular, traumatic event where the shock allowed the party apparatus to eventually recoalesce around Trump. This is different. This is a slow, grinding death by 1,000 cuts. It's the accumulation of dozens of separate crises. Courts are blocking him. His officials are facing jail. The economy is buckling under the weight of his trade war. The Epstein secrets are festering. There is no single event to spin or memory hole. It is a suffocating atmosphere of failure. And Trump's response, the rage and denial, is the worst possible strategy. Because every time he calls a Republican senator a traitor on social media, he makes it that much harder for that senator to ever walk back their position. He is digging the trench deeper. He is accelerating his own isolation. The more he screams, the more he confirms the central thesis of the resignation letter, that he is not in control, that he is unfit, and that the country cannot afford 2 more years of this chaos. Let's break down the architecture of this historic GOP fracture into the core components that matter. The number 47 is a political earthquake. This is not a fringe caucus of gadflies, a bipartisan coalition anchored by 47 members of Congress, including significant GOP names demanding a sitting president of their own party resign, is an event without modern precedent. It signals that the rebellion has reached critical mass. For every one member willing to sign publicly, there are likely 3 more who agree privately but lack the courage. This public declaration shatters the illusion of party unity and creates a permission structure for the dam to break completely. The resignation letter's political calculus is inescapably correct. The argument laid out in the letter is not hyperbole. It's a projection based on hard data. If Democrats win the House in the midterms, and every current indicator suggests they are favored to do so, impeachment is a lock. The evidentiary buffet is too rich to ignore. Obstruction of justice, contempt of court, directing officials to defy subpoenas, and the radioactive Epstein cover-up. The letter offers Trump a narrow, dignified off-ramp. Resign now, cite health or family, and avoid the spectacle of a second impeachment and potential removal. It's a cold, logical offer. But Trump's psychology is allergic to logic. Trump's own admission seals his fate. The fact that Trump himself has publicly acknowledged that losing the House equals impeachment demonstrates that this is not a surprise attack. He has seen the trap closing for months. He knows the material the Democrats have. His rage is not born of shock, it is born of helplessness. He is screaming because he is looking at the chessboard and realizing he has no moves left except to flip the table over. The tariff disaster is a Republican nightmare. The Supreme Court striking down the tariffs and creating a $175 billion refund liability is a fiscal wound that bleeds directly onto the campaign trail. Republicans are supposed to be the party of balanced budgets and free markets. Defending a $175 billion hole caused by an illegal executive overreach is an impossible task for any GOP member in a swing district. This economic calamity is the tangible pocketbook reason many Republicans feel liberated to finally break ranks. Epstein is the moral napalm. The obstruction of the Epstein files by Bondi and Patel is the kind of scandal that transcends partisanship. It taps into a deep, primal public revulsion. When a Republican like Pat Toomey cites this specific failure as the reason for demanding resignation, it legitimizes the concern for conservative voters. It turns the resignation demand from a liberal witch hunt into a question of basic human decency. You cannot be the president if you are covering up for a network of pedophiles. That argument is bulletproof. The screaming rages are evidence of unfitness. The leaked videos and descriptions of Trump's behavior behind closed doors are not just gossip. They are Exhibit A in a potential 25th Amendment proceeding. The picture of a president losing emotional control, attacking staff, and operating in a paranoid fog directly supports the argument that he is no longer capable of handling the duties of the office, particularly the nuclear codes and foreign policy crises. Vance's shadow preparations are the wild card. The persistent rumors that Vice President Vance is distancing himself and consulting on the 25th Amendment process are the most dangerous signal for Trump. The Vice President is the linchpin of the 25th Amendment. If Vance is even considering it, it means the loyalty structure that has protected Trump for years is crumbling at the very top. The resignation letter gives Vance the political justification to act as a constitutional officer rather than a political subordinate. This is worse than January 6th. After the Capitol attack, the GOP base and most of the elected officials eventually rallied back to Trump. Why? Because it was one day, one event. This is a relentless, grinding accumulation of failure. It's a death by 1,000 legal briefs and economic reports. The stamina required to defend Trump in this environment is exhausting even the most loyal soldiers. The base erosion is real. When Republican members of Congress call for resignation, it creates a permission slip for rank-and-file Republican voters to reconsider their allegiance. While the hardcore MAGA base will double down and scream betrayal, the softer GOP voters, the suburbanites who held their nose and voted for the policies, are now being told by their own representatives that this man is a liability. That erosion in the base is the difference between a close election and a wipeout. Impeachment becomes bipartisan legitimized. The resignation letter transforms the impending impeachment from a partisan Democratic stunt into a bipartisan constitutional duty. Democrats can now stand on the floor and quote Republican members of Congress who demanded the president's removal. It strips away the last layer of political defense the GOP had, the death spiral of approval. Trump's approval rating is in a free fall because the crises are no longer just in the political pages. They are hitting kitchen tables. The tariff refunds, the court chaos, and the constant legal drama create an atmosphere of instability that swing voters despise. Low approval makes him a weight around the neck of every Republican on the ballot. 2026 is a referendum on removal. The midterm elections have been effectively reframed by this letter. It is no longer about inflation or border security. It is a binary choice. Vote Democrat to check and remove the president. Vote Republican to protect him. That is a losing frame for the GOP nationally. There is no escape hatch. Trump is trapped in a labyrinth of his own making. Resign? He looks weak. Stay? He gets impeached. Attack the GOP? He destroys the party infrastructure he needs to survive a Senate trial. Every option is a dead end, and that is why the rage is so visceral. He is a man who built his entire identity on the myth of winning, and he is being forced to confront a scenario where every possible outcome looks like losing. The bottom line is inescapable. The Republican calls for Donald Trump's resignation represent the moment the center of gravity shifted irrevocably. It is the sound of a political party trying to perform an emergency amputation to save the body from a fatal infection. Whether it happens via the quiet shame of resignation, the dramatic invocation of the 25th Amendment, or the slow grind of a second impeachment, the Trump presidency is in its terminal phase. The 47 lawmakers threw him a rope. They gave him a chance to write the ending on his own terms. But he is too consumed by rage and denial to grab it. He is going to fight, and he is going to scream, and he is going to try to burn the whole thing down on his way out. But the math doesn't care about his feelings. The courts don't care about his tweets. And increasingly, his own party doesn't care about his survival. We are watching the final agonizing death throes of a political era, and the man at the center of it is having a very public, very loud meltdown because deep down, behind the bravado, he knows it's over. He just can't say it out loud.